Good evening. We're gathered together for an informational meeting of the Augusta City Council. Today is Thursday, May 14th, 2026. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome. Comparatively short agenda tonight. As always, we begin with Part A. Persons wishing to address the City Council have submitted a formal request to do so, and we don't have any tonight. Part B is an open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council, and then we'll get to our listed items for tonight's meeting. C1 is the Augusta Housing Authority update, and C2 is review of the use of Bicentennial Park. Moving back to Part B, open comment period for any persons wishing to address the City Council. Do we have any? Hearing none. Directly to C1, do we have anybody here to present with respect to the Augusta Housing Authority update? Okay, let's put that aside and move to C2, and we'll come back to that if necessary. C2 is a review of the use of Bicentennial Park, sponsored by Councilor Lind. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm kind of glad I had this because there's nothing really else going on tonight. That's
Right.
Good, perfect timing. So we talked a little bit during the budget about Bicentennial Park, and I decided to take a look at the fees, and I want to cover three things tonight. I've got a recommendation on the fees. I want to talk about some issues with the park and some pollution that's going on that's been identified by Maine Lakes, and then potential group use and potential economic growth and marketing for the city and a little bit of revenue for the park. So as a review right now, and I think Earl's here, if I screw this up, he can correct me, but the park is open to residents only, but they can bring guests, and there's no limit on guests, and it's kind of ill-defined. The current fees are daily $2 for an adult, and I couldn't find a definition of that, and then children and seniors is $1. That's a day use. Seasonal pass is $25 for a family, and I think that's a tricky term. The state doesn't use that term. Family has evolved, so I'm going to have a recommendation in regard to that. Seasonal pass for an adult is $15. It's $10 for children, and again, no real definition, and this is an odd amount, $7.50 for a senior. I don't know where that ever came from. So I tried to make a comparison. The best comparison I could think of was to look at our state parks, and they run between $3 and $6 a day. They kind of lumped into two groups. The smaller parks, which I would say probably the, I don't want to use the word unpopular, but lower use parks are $3 to $4 a day. The popular ones with beaches and high use are $5 to $6 a day. The seasonal rates in Maine are $55 a person. In New Hampshire, they're $35. I thought $55 was pretty expensive, and both charge $105 for a vehicle pass, which I like better than saying family, because we don't know what a family is, and I think a vehicle is just an easy way to measure, but, $105. So what I'm thinking of with Bicentennial, which I don't think we've looked at the rates in quite a while, is I think $4 for an adult is fair. I'd like to define children as 5 to 11, which is what the state does, and seniors over 65, leave it $1 for seniors and children. And then a seasonal pass, I kicked around how much it really should be. In consideration, the state is like $105. I think $50 for a vehicle, $25 for an individual, and then for children and seniors, $10. The group rate, I talked to Earl a little bit. Before I retired from the National Guard, we would have an annual meeting somewhere, and we're using the Androscoggin Yacht Club. And so when I got elected, we switched over to bicentennial, and I don't recall what it was, so I asked him, I think he said $3 a person, they're talking about maybe going to $5, and so I took a look at the state. They're $150 for any state park that has a covered roof, they said. The only exception I found was, a lot of people mispronounce it, it's Rang Pond, not Range. Rang Pond has a resource room that they rent for $150 a day. So I don't have a recommendation for a group rate right now, but I did have a couple constituents I talked to that are familiar, and they gave me some ideas, and I want to talk about that a little later. So that's what I'm thinking of with the fees, and I want to address a little bit about Bicentennial Park and the impact of Three-Cornered Pond. I want to talk about Three-Cornered Pond a little bit. So Three-Cornered Pond is not impaired, which is kind of rare in this area right now. In this area, 3 Mile, Weber, China, Great Pond in Belgrade, Long Pond, East Pond, North Pond, and Abessacook, all considered impaired. Three Corner is not. And that's really important because it's a very small pond and it can't take much of a load. And so we need to be protective of that. And it's also the start of what's called a tri-watershed. Three Corner goes into 3 Mile and that goes into Weber. So there's a downstream effect if the headwater is polluted. And right now, there's a Kennebec County Soil and Water Conservation District is working with DEP, and they're developing a 10-year plan for those 3 water bodies. And I think we're going to hear about it later. I think we got an email from somebody, I think, over at Weber that wants to come in and talk to us about that. So in part, because of that study, Maine Lakes did what's called a Lake Smart evaluation, and Lake Smart is a program where the volunteers will go out and they'll evaluate the shore and they'll look for erosion and what's called non-point source pollution, which is basically erosion and runoff, which dumps phosphorus into the lake. And there's some significant issues out at Three-Cornered Pond, and that report is with Earl. He's looked at it already, and they have it, and I know they're going to work on it. But I kind of wanted to highlight some of this and why I think we really need to pay attention. There's a swimming area, and this is the paragraph that caught my attention. It said, because of the extent of shoreline instability, we recommend seeking guidance from the staff of the Maine DEP Our Shore program. And they're recommending a nature-based solution, native plants and some bioengineering, and I saw the picture, and it's a significant banking that's going to require quite a bit of work to stabilize, and that's been pushing some erosion into that lake right in that swimming area. The paths out there need erosion control mulch and some channeling to keep the water from going down, and then the camp, which I'm unfamiliar with. I've used the park a couple of times, but I haven't been out to the camp. They're recommending infiltration steps from the dock. They're regular steps, and so the erosion just runs right down. Infiltration steps, if you've ever seen them, are pretty neat. They're a box, and then this crushed stone in the middle allows the water to go down through. The dock needs to be reinforced. It's, I guess, moving around where it meets the land. They're recommending some native vegetation. There's some bare soil areas in the yard. The shoreline buffer needs to have some plants added to it on the upslope towards the camp. I guess there's some runoff there. And the drip line, there's some problems with it. So all of that being said, I think we need to be really good stewards. The city of Augusta should set the example out there. So the bottom line on the daily, to review my recommendation, and I like to, and it's not a lot of money, but use these fees directed towards whatever we can do on an ongoing basis, not just fix it this one time, but every year go through and re-look at what we're doing. Recommending $4 for an adult, this is daily fee, children 5 and under, and seniors over 65, $1. Seasonal pass, $50 for a vehicle, which I like better than trying to say family, and individuals 25, children and seniors $10. So next steps for me, I'm starting to think about use of the park beyond just that, group use. And so, this one constituent had some great ideas and said, there is some corporate use going on. Some companies use it. Like I said, my unit, I had about 30 people. We went out at the end of the year and had a get-together. The issue was we were worried about the weather. We weren't offered the camp. We were not offered the use of the camp, which I'd like to go out and see. So what I'd like to do is think about maybe corporate sponsors of the park, perhaps. We had some good luck with the pools. I'd like to think about corporate use. say, this is what we've got. This is who we are as a city. We've got these great parks. Your company can come out and spend a day, a team building thing. But I think we need to take a field trip. I'd like to go out and look at the camp. I'd like to look at the lay of the land. I'd like to listen to the staff's recommendation before we say, what can we use it for a group? I kind of like to at least gain some familiarity with what's out there. So I'd like to advance the change in the fees. I'd like to get some money coming in, a little bit more money. I think it's appropriate. It's been a long time. I think we can put, that just requires an order. It's not 2 reads. We could have an order next week and have the fees ready before they open for the year. I'd like to schedule the trip. We could do it as a group or individual counselors. I'll let the city manager kind of work through that, but I would like to go out and at least look at the cabin. I'm familiar with the park and others are, but I have not been to the cabin at all. I don't even know what it's used for now. I've already talked to Earl and the city manager about addressing those non-point source pollution issues and taking care of that. There is grant money available, federal grant money. We've missed the deadline this year for 319 money, but it comes out between March and May, and I'd encourage the city to apply. It's a kind of a delayed process where the grant comes out, the cutoff is May, it's approved, and then you won't get the money till the following year, so the cycle would be 27, we would apply, and then the money would come in 28. But I think we should get in that cycle of at least applying for that 319. It's a clean water grant. And actually, for historians, it was passed by Senator Muskie from Maine. And I just think we need to be better stewards of Lake. So I'd like to go out and I'd like to think about using that, again, as a spot for companies to use and to say, we've got this great place. That's my thoughts on Bicentennial Park.
Did you take the numbers that we were given during the budget process about attendance and stack them up against your fees and see how we would have made out?
No, I didn't look at attendance. I just was comparing the fee. And I think this year may be different because we've knocked the schedule down significantly, so. And I think attendance is probably weather driven too, so I didn't really look at attendance, no.
Yeah. Discussion, questions? Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Lind, for bringing this up and keeping our attention on it. I agree that Bicentennial we need to protect and be good stewards of. It's a pretty incredible thing that we've got. And my kids and I use it quite a bit in the summertime, and I know childcare does as well. We've been there sometimes that childcare's there using it. I think the recommendations that you've suggested for rates are reasonable and would help us keep this up. Especially hearing about the range of state parks and things like that. I like where you landed on these, that we're not necessarily meeting state park standards for rates, but coming up a little bit. One question I had, so children ages 12 and up would count as an adult rate, is that right?
I'm open to that. That was what the state used as a definition. We didn't define it.
Yep.
I don't think a 17-year-old should be counted as a child. So they had 5 to 11.
Yeah. I don't really have a strong opinion on that. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding. I think you're right that individuals that can drive themselves there are probably there as quasi-adults. And that is, if the state's using it, that probably is a good rationale to make that cut at that point. As far as the efforts to keep it from becoming impaired, could we use like a reserve account type thing, city manager, if we use that for these funds?
You could. Earl has already received this report and has incorporated some funding for that and, different monies. But to answer your question directly, that's something we could look at carrying funds over to. But I think we've got a pretty good plan that Earl has discussed to do this, to stay on it.
Okay.
I could address that, a couple thoughts. I don't know, Earl, if you want to. So I think just some resources. I've been working this for a few years out at China Lake. I'm not saying, but Kennebec County Soil and Water Conservation District, Stephanie Taylor can develop plans, pretty reasonable cost. And there's a couple contractors that can. The other thing I thought about was Longfellows. They can recommend native plants, and I know they donate a lot to the city. They've been a great partner.
Yeah.
So I thought about them. Erosion control mulch, I mean, we've done that 100 times. That's cheap, right? So those are the things I thought about. If we do want a contractor, I've got a couple I'm using now. They're a little expensive. I think Stephanie's probably pretty inexpensive out at Kennebec County Soil and Water. She's good to work with. She's very good to work with, so. Plus Main Lakes, you got the report earlier, you'd see it, and yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, City Manager. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The good news is the lake is not impaired at this point. Rich and I have been going through this, and we are coming up with a 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year plan, hopefully to get everything implemented by year 5. A lot of erosion, mulch, stone, native plants is what's being asked for in this. I'm interested to learn more about the infiltration steps. That was one recommendation in this plan down by the cabin. But it's mostly just, the erosion control mulch, the native plants, or stone. I like the idea of the native plants because it'll fit within the system.
Honestly, I didn't see anything there that would take longer than a year or two to implement. It didn't seem that difficult.
Correct, but what I have to look at right now is
Funny.
I hate to say it, but with labor cuts,
Yep.
how we're going to get in there and get this job done with the existing labor that we
Yep.
have. And that's why we thought of 1 year to get some of the low-hanging fruit, or maybe some of the most important stuff, 3-year and 5-year with the existing labor
Could
we
ask a
have.
favor. I think that shoreline stabilization in that swimming area is probably the worst part.
I concur.
Yep, and the paths with the erosion control mulch is just simple. Those are two things that could really make a difference right off.
Yep.
And everything else, like the infiltration steps, that's 3 years. Yeah.
No, I agree, and the 319 grant is something we can look at to get a lot of this work done in like year 28.
That usually comes out in an RFP from the state.
Yep.
With all the other grants, so, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
I knew you'd be on it, Earl. Thank you.
Are you recommending any change in the policy about Augusta residents only?
I think it's fine. The only thing I saw, Earl, I don't know, Earl, but the only thing I noticed, it just said Augusta residents with guests, as long as the guests, it didn't have any limit on guests. So I started thinking, well, should we limit the number of guests someone could bring out there? I mean, I don't know if it's ever been a problem or not.
I don't know if it's been a problem. I don't know
No
what the
idea.
spirit of that rule is. Currently, I don't see it as a problem. I do like the rates. That's something Rich and I had actually already gone over with John Dennett, the park manager. And we came up with the same rates that you did. We also didn't like the idea of the word family, because what does that mean?
Yep.
So we changed it to vehicle as well. And when I looked down through this, I actually compared Bicentennial Nature Park to Damerscotta Lake, because I
Yep.
thought that would be a kind of a similar type area. And yeah, all those figures, all those numbers, all those recommendations fall right in line with what Rich and I were looking at already.
Great minds think alike. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I haven't, we didn't talk. I
No,
gave
I
Earl a heads
know.
up. I gave him a heads up and I gave him the report. We didn't meet on this. So there you go.
Fix is in.
That's good.
Counselor Jenkins?
A couple of things. I don't think I would worry about residents only until we get to a capacity issue. And I don't think that, I've not seen lines waiting to get in or people turned away. Especially if you want to try corporate retreats, things of that nature, those people will be from away perhaps. So that doesn't seem to be a real issue. I'm just curious, does Kennebec County Jail still do work release?
Yeah.
I mean, with the labor shortage, we certainly pay our fair share, more than our fair share. Everybody hearing that to Kennebec County, that perhaps we could take at least some benefit back and some work release to do some of this
Absolutely.
manual
Good idea.
labor at these things.
I will say, one of the limiting factors we have is the number of vehicles we can get in there. We have enough parking spaces for about 50 vehicles. Other than that, people start parking alongside of the road, and to get an emergency vehicle in after that it's not passable. So we have to think about the number of vehicles and parking spaces that we have. That's the only limiting factor. I know last year we rented it to the National Guard for a family outing, and they brought about 100 people. Parking was an issue. So we talked after that, and the idea would be they would shuttle the families out there, so parking would not be an issue next time.
Councilor Morris Polly?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Lind. I think this is really an important project, 'cause I think that this is a huge asset to the city of Augusta that we should be putting the attention that we're putting into it right now. I wanted to add a couple of things. I did have the non-Augusta residents as one of my issues here. I don't believe that excluding non-Augusta residents is a good idea, especially where it is close to the Windsor town line, and it is a body of water that is we don't need to worry about swimmer's itch, which I think is one of the things that I hear a lot of families worry about in the summer, and it deters them from going swimming. The idea of the corporate sponsors, I think, is a great idea. I am wondering whether or not we want to open that up where it is instead of a retreat, but instead a corporation, depending on size, could purchase it for the use of all of their employees for a set amount. I think that that could be a pretty good income coming in and allow for individual corporations to offer their employees a benefit for working there. Question in regards to advertising. I don't know if we have any advertising that we do, but I think that that's something that we should really look at is how are we advertising this? And also the ability to purchase online, tickets online, rather than having to do cash at the door. I think that a lot of individuals don't carry cash, and that may be a problem with them coming to visit. And so whether or not we have an ability to do a scan or a purchase on our website or something along those lines.
We don't have that right now, but it's certainly something we can look into. I know the Civic Center not recently, within the last few years, have gone to being able to scan and use cards to take money. So I don't see that as an issue, just something we have to learn to do. One thing I do want to bring up, and I learned this when I was researching more about BNP, is back in March of 2014, there is a Bicentennial Nature Park operating policy. It says, be it ordered, the City Council to approve the following policy be added to Bicentennial Nature Park operating policies. Augusta tax-paying businesses who for every $100 of donation to the park shall receive a transferable pass for their employees to use regardless of residential status. I did not know this existed. I only learned it because I started doing research on Bicentennial Nature Park. But there's already an order in the books.
So maybe we should revisit
I think that's a good idea.
the amount that is. I think that's a great idea too. Thank you.
Councilor Lilly?
I appreciate the counselor for bringing this to our attention here, and sounds like you guys are already on it there, updating the pricing and the cost, so I'm all for that. One thing that I'm not familiar with, and I've been to the park multiple times, is can someone explain to me what the cabin is? That's not the main area, is it?
It's not the main area. When you drive into the main parking lot where the office is on the right, if you continue going straight, there's a small road. If you go down that road, not very far at all, there's a cabin.
Okay.
A cabin with a, I don't want to call it a boat launch, but you can get a kayak and a canoe in there, but there is a cabin that's owned by the city.
What is it being used for right now?
It's not really being used for anything. At certain times, at the city manager's discretion, he will allow, the city manager can allow certain people to use it. I think the last time it was really used was when, I think it was Glenn Cummings, the president of UMA, was getting his apartment or condo redone. Bill Riggio allowed him to use that for a period of time, but it's been used at the city manager's discretion, and it's not used very much at all.
We do our bureau head like meetings out there during the summertime. So the city staff uses it occasionally, but yeah, it's not used. And correct me if I'm wrong, Earl, but it's my understanding it's a holding tank too. So it's not like you could have a large family using that and it would have to be pumped regularly and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
When Glenn Cummings was using it, we had to pump that weekly.
Yeah.
It's just a holding tank. It's not a septic or leach field, so.
It's a very nice cabin that has the amenities, but we don't We don't use it, like I said, for anything other than what the city staff uses it for. I think your staff will use the bathroom there and things like that, or, you know,
Perhaps, yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure.
But it's not used.
Yeah.
I know way in the past, we've used it for when we've interviewing candidates for city positions, they've been allowed to use that to stay over when they were visiting.
Yep.
Right.
Being interviewed, so.
Yeah, it's a good recruiting tool sometimes in the summer.
Right.
Council Mishu?
Just real quickly, clarification, Councilor Lind, was that 65 and over or over 65? It makes a big difference.
Say 65
you.
and over.
Some.
Thank you.
It may have no relevance today, but I remember in the past when budgets were tight, I think the Kiwanis Club had adopted it and supported it for a while too, with some fundraising, so probably not relevant to our discussion tonight, but just a little history. Councilor Lynn?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Council Morris Pauly on inviting non-residents. I don't think the parking is adequate enough, and I don't think that Shoreline can take much more than what's being done now to it. So I think an increase, and I'm not going to name the community, but there's a community down the road that has some shoreline frontage and didn't want to do a park, and there's been some decisions made by other communities not to do what we did. So this is our choice, and I like to keep it with residents only. They can bring a guest, by all means, but I still like to keep it that way. But
I think Winthrop residents only, aren't they?
they are, North
Yeah.
Courses, that's limited residents only, and
Yeah. Mr. Manager?
I think there is some history, you know, it's kind of been passed on folklore, if you will. But I think there was a reason why they only had Augusta residents in the past. And Loretta, our executive assistant who lives on that lake, had mentioned something about that, why they limited it. But I could get that information. I mean, obviously, that was these decisions have been made a long time ago, and they were, you know, things have changed certainly since then, but I could at least let you know why that was decided, you know, however long ago that was, to limit it. So, and then, you know, I could send it out by email so everybody knows.
Council Morris Pauly?
I mean, I think it depends on the amount of use that it's getting. If it's not getting significant amount of use by Augusta residents, then it's income. And if it is getting significant use by Augusta residents, then it should be Augusta residents. So trying it one way and making sure that we have the numbers and seeing what's going on, I think is important for us to make that decision next year or the year after.
that makes sense. If we could get back to a regular schedule and kind of watch it and see. I won't be here, you all can do that. But I would, that does make sense once we get to a regular, kind of monitor that, but.
Council Sinkwitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With reducing the hours at the park this year and thinking about the corporate sponsors or retreats, I'm wondering if we can guide those to the days that the park is regularly closed so that we're not impacting the ability of the residents and people who are paying these fees to use it. I think it's open Wednesday through, is it Saturday or Sunday now?
Right now, it's open 7 days a week.
Right now, until July 1st, right?
It opens up in June. It's not even open yet.
Will we enact, since it's changing with the new budget, how will we go about doing
Well,
that?
those are things that Rich and I are talking about, and we'll meet with Jared once we have the full plan together and meet with Jared to say, these are our recommendations for the park. But to your question or your thoughts, those are thoughts that Rich and I have already had. You know, if we say we're going to open it up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then rent it out Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for corporate events, I think that's a good mix, and those are things that Rich and I have already been talking about, and things that we'll probably present to the city manager.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
And I think to your question, that new budget starts July 1, so they'll have to operate within that reduction July 1st.
Okay.
Yep.
So I get the sense there's at least interest in pursuing the new fee schedule. And in terms of policy changes. I didn't know that I heard much by way of policy changes, but that may be a matter of discussion between internally and then brought to us if there are any.
Certainly. I have a question.
Yeah.
While we're on fee changes, we talked about like corporate sponsors, but when a business wants to rent the park, what do they pay now?
Well, when a business wants to rent the park, we just charge them the normal park rental fee for an adult for the number of adults that they bring in.
Okay.
I think for the Guard, they brought in about 100 people, and we charged them the $3 rate, so it was $300 for them. If I look at some of the other parks throughout the state, they're between $100 and $150 for the park rental. So depending on the number, I would I think the recommendations we'll make to you is we keep it at the per number of people that they bring in.
That's what I was going to ask the council, because that's a different rate we haven't discussed at this meeting. Are you comfortable keeping it how we're doing it, or do you want to change that?
Fine with that. I mean, the state charges a flat fee of 150, so, or what are you looking at, like 20 people?
I think we may just have to look at it and think, a minimum fee of this, but if it's over this number of people, it's, maybe $4 per person with a minimum fee of $100 or $150, whatever we decide. So if you are bringing in 20, the minimum fee will be at least $150 or $100. But if you're bringing in 100 people or more, you're going to pay the $4. But, yeah.
Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think one difference, I know my family has rented the pavilion at Lake St. George often. You are not renting the entire park. And so I think having that bottom level fee, but allowing for more than that, given that it is the entire park, I think that is a value that is worth paying for if that's what you're looking for. And I like that idea of having a flat bottom, but then additional per head if it's going to be a larger group in that way.
Yep.
Anything else?
Field trip from the council sometime.
Yeah, if I may, the list of things that I had, was Councilor Lynn's suggestion of a field trip. We could organize, obviously, if we go as a group, that has to be advertised and open to the public. So we could do things separately or as a group and advertise it. We can do, video it and have you look at it too, but I will organize that through Loretta and that type of thing. I will say up front, if we're thinking like a rental or something like that to make money on the cabin, my suggestion would be not to do something like that. That's a lot of staff time that would go into that, and then monitoring, any damage that happens and different things like that. So I think we'd have to have a more robust discussion on, we come to you with, okay, this is what we would need to facilitate rentals at that location, because I don't think we're equipped to do that at this point, so.
Clarify what I meant.
Councilor Lynn?
So I was not applying rentals.
Okay.
As far as day use, that just, has a kitchen.
Yeah.
As a bathroom. So if a group went out, they'd have a spot to
Thank you.
go. Say you're a company, you could have your meeting in there, do whatever you want to do. People could go out and enjoy the park and maybe go back to the cabin. And that's what this particular constituent had seen, and it's kind of what I'd seen. It's what I experienced too, so.
Yeah, I think that's
It provides a better base for a day event. With a holding tank, what is it, how big is that holding tank, Earl?
I'm not too sure, but I know Glenn and his family were there, and we ended up pumping it once a
Sounds
week.
like a 1,000-gallon tank. I've got a 2,000-gallon tank at my camp. I only pump it once a year.
Yeah, it wasn't that much of an issue, but we wanted to make sure that
And that
it
really,
didn't overflow.
it's problematic renting it with a holding tank, so I wouldn't advocate renting it.
Okay.
It's got a gate. I mean, it gets complicated at night.
Right.
And so it just presents a whole bunch of issues.
Excellent. So advertising, we'll look at that with Haley, advertising the park more. We'll monitor, we'll keep really close numbers on this year to come back to the council with overflow and things like that for non-residents possibly next year. And we'll look at pay online and that type of thing. We just got that in one of our other departments as well.
The library.
Library just got online payments too. So I know that's all through our finance department, and so we'll tap them to look at that for the park too. So that's the list I have that I'll work on, and we'll bring back an order to a business meeting for rates. Is that what everybody would like to see for an action item at the next business meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess my question is increasing the rates, does that have to go to an order? I mean, I'm thinking of other businesses, libraries sometimes will increase their rates.
Yeah.
We increase our rates sometimes for cemeteries, but we don't typically
Yeah.
come for an order, so.
Yeah, no, I would like it documented somewhere, Earl, that we have that, so I think it's probably just as easy where we've had this discussion, and you have an order come back, that it's set in stone, that we had that. But to your point, I don't think we have to do that. And I think in the past, traditionally, it hasn't been done. It's just done, the clerk's rates and different things for online is done. But if we advertise a rate, that's what they use, so. But I think it's just as easy to come back with an order unless there's no interest in doing that.
And I will send you some plans of similar projects I worked on, Earl, for that shoreline. I'll sanitize the address of the people, but I've got probably 3 or 4 I can send you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
All right, the other item on our agenda tonight is an update from the Augusta Housing Authority. Norm Mays is with us tonight.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager, thank you for your patience. I plugged in the 7 PM time, but,
It works.
yep, so thought I had plenty of time. Excuse me. So thank you for your opportunity to provide an update on the Housing Authority since last year. I've prepared a little more comprehensive overview here, so for 2025, Augusta Housing maximized its annual funding by utilizing as many of its allotted housing choice and public or project-based vouchers as the funding would allow. Now that utilization is gradually being reduced through attrition, we're waiting to see if the 2026 funding will allow us to begin drawing applicants from the wait list again. Of those households, of the 312 current households on the of the housing choice and project-based vouchers that we currently have rented up, 3 are comprised of veteran heads of household being assisted using Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, commonly referred to as a VASH voucher. Supported services are provided through the Veterans Administration for those individuals. We also have 67 are mainstream vouchers being utilized to assist non-elderly persons who are either transitioning out of institutional settings or at risk of being placed in such a setting, as well as persons experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. In addition, Augusta Housing is consistently scored as a high-performing housing authority by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, on the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, or CMAP, for many years and continued that trend for 2025. Augusta Housing has also operated a family self-sufficiency, and if anyone wants to jump in here with questions, please interrupt as you would like. Augusta Housing has operated a family self-sufficiency, or FSS, program since 1992, and we currently have over 20 households participating in that program. The FSS program enables HUD-assisted families to increase their earned income and reduce their need for assistance and rental subsidies. Participating households that increase their household earnings will have the incremental increases in their rental payments credited to an escrow account in order for them to build wealth, which they can draw down later. Some of the services coordinated through the program include childcare, transportation, education, job training, employment counseling, and financial literacy, among others. Excuse me. Services are generally not provided by Augusta Housing, but rather outsourced providers in the community. To provide a perspective on what it takes, the personnel it takes to do all this work, Augusta Housing has a team of 6 staff, including a housing operations manager, 2 occupancy specialists, a housing inspector, a program assistant, and myself. We also have our housing inspector provide inspection services to 5 surrounding housing authorities. For those who aren't familiar with the Maine Association of Public Housing Directors, our MAPHD, Augusta Housing is an active member of this longstanding association. MAPHD is comprised of Maine's 21 public housing authorities, including Maine Housing, who work together to ensure that as many eligible Mainers across the state have the opportunity to find safe, affordable housing through rental vouchers, public housing, and other affordable housing, such as developments largely funded through Maine Housing and the Federal Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, all of which have funded our housing developments and benefited from. MAPHD also regularly advocates for additional funding and programming through Maine State Legislature, as well as its federal congressional delegation. Recently began to update our strategic plan, and that includes not just the Housing Authority, but also the Augusta Housing Service Corporation, which oversees housing development for the Housing Authority. Our plan, last plan, achieved its 2 priorities. We developed housing near Kennebec Lock, and we then filled the Housing Operations Manager position. The new plan will consider future housing development, potential new programming, staffing needs in the coming years, and other priorities that may arise as part of the planning process. As a development update, as most of you know, Augusta Housing opened its first development through the adaptive reuse of the former Hodgkin School in 2015. 47 units of affordable housing at Hodgkin School Apartments has provided seniors with homes since that time. In 2020, Hodgkin's was followed by the construction of 29 units of workforce housing just off Maple Street on Sadie's Way. And last year, we completed Sturgeon Landing at 18 Park Street. We just passed an important milestone, completing our first year of operation yesterday. The residents of our 32 units of family housing have formed a cohesive and supportive community with the assistance of our property management contractor, CNC Realty Management, as is the case with our other 2 affordable housing developments. And lastly, our 34-unit senior development right behind the current Hodgkin School, senior housing, is anticipated to start construction later this summer. Hoped for that for quite a while now, and we'll hold a groundbreaking at that time, which invitations to the city council, mayor, and city staff will be sent accordingly. This project will be our first with solar panels to offset electricity unit usage, so we're excited about that. In light of current electrical rates, as I'm sure a lot of you are familiar. Like Sturgeon Landing, all units will be equipped with heat pumps to provide heating in the colder months and air conditioning in the warmer months of the year. And I want to thank the Augusta City Council, Mayor, and the entire city of Augusta for making another affordable housing project for seniors possible on city land. As mentioned previously, Augusta Housing Service Corporation has also co-partnered with Mastway Development, the developer of 99 Western Avenue on Iron Heights in Gardner. This newly constructed 32-unit workforce development is slated to begin lease-up as early as next month. So we're excited to see that. Lastly, Augusta Housing is providing 10 project-based vouchers to Riverland's affordable housing. This home for good development will serve persons experiencing homelessness. Its residents will receive 24/7 supportive services provided by Volunteers of America, Northern New England. And That concludes my presentation, but I'll welcome any questions you might have.
Counselor Sinkwitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Norm.
Hi.
It's good to see you. I appreciate you bringing, I mean, all of this is a great update, but I especially appreciate you bringing up the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. I remember a few years ago, your predecessor, Amanda, talking to us about that program, and I was very impressed at the time and remained impressed that that is an incredibly important program for our area. I was wondering, is there a ceiling of capacity for that program at any point in time of a number of families that can be enrolled?
Well, currently we have 61 mandatory slots, but there is no upper limit as far as I know. We haven't been, it's a little bit of a challenge because the number of our residents or participants, we have a number of elderly and disabled participants who probably wouldn't be able to meet the qualifications for that program. So that's one limitation, but we could probably expand it, maybe not up to the 61 mandatory slots that we have right now, but we could probably get it up to 30 or 40 at any one time.
Yeah, that sounds great, like a great goal. And with Sturgeon Landing coming online and then the development in Gardner, will that open up more capacity in that way, or not capacity, more interest perhaps?
I would say we do have some project-based vouchers going in there, so it very well could open up some new opportunities for those individuals. But at this time, we don't really have any, we're not pulling from our wait list, so we wouldn't have new participants coming off our wait list until we're certain that our funding is sufficient
Makes sense.
to do so.
Thank you. The other question that I had was with construction starting this summer on the expansion at Malta Street, given the way these things take quite a bit of time, have there been any new developments that are problematic that we should be looking forward and kind of anticipating in the development of that expansion, or are things kind of going along as expected?
I don't think we foresee any difficulties. It was more finding an investor to get the tax credits, and so that was sort of slowing the project up. But at this time, we haven't had the same challenges at some projects that have the Build America, Buy America. Some of the elements there are required to be all within U.S. built, sourced, but not all of the elements. So that sort of made it a little bit easier for us to meet those requirements that some developments haven't been able to currently, especially on electrical equipment and such.
Right. Well, that is good news to hear that we can get shovels in the ground this summer and get that moving forward. I know that's been top of mind for people for a while, getting that done. So thank you very much for the work that your organization's doing in our city. Sturgeon Landing is beautiful. I was really pleased to be able to go tour when it was opening up. And I think having these kinds of places for people to live in our city is incredibly important. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Lynn?
Well, I'll be glad to see Hutchins built. 9 years ago, and this is anecdotal, maybe it's because in 9 years I've become a senior citizen, but I never would have predicted, as we went through this budget with affordability, that I've had that many seniors reach out to me concerned about staying in their homes, how they're going to live, where they're going to go, so that even more so than before, it's a pressing issue. And again, it's not scientific, it's just based on the number of people that contacted me in that age group, that there is a bunch of folks that things have changed. The old days of pension and all this is very fluid. So I would love to see that project up and going and provide a bit of grace for people that are in that category, being able to live safely. And so by all means, full throttle on Hodgkins, that'd be great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Morris-Pollock?
Yes, thank you, Norm. I just want to take the opportunity while you're here to ask a question in regards to the housing inspection, or the housing inspecting position. So when you say that there's 312 vouchers, I'm assuming that some of these vouchers are also individuals who are living in private landlord-owned. And so your housing inspector goes in and inspects the unit to ensure that it meets a standard in order for them to continue to release or get the voucher. Is that correct?
Yes.
So can you just tell me a little bit about what that process looks like if the unit does not meet the inspection, and whether or not that's crossing with, for instance, like code here in Augusta, whether or not that's something that you work together on when you're finding those?
For the most part, most fails have to be passed within 30 days, corrected within 30 days. If it's a more serious electrical problem or plumbing problem, or roof problem, that would be a 24-hour fail, and so that requires a quick turnaround. There are those rare occasions where we have landlords that either cannot complete the work in time, or there's some delay that they aren't willing to be as participate with us to get it done on time. And in those instances, or in very serious instances, that's when we would involve code enforcement. So it's a rarity, but we do involve code enforcement when we do have those difficulties.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Were you working from notes tonight, or did you have a written report? And if you don't
I
have
have notes. I sort of finished it, wrapped it up today, but
at your leisure, could you reduce it to a written report so we can distribute it to the
certainly,
councilors? Yeah,
certainly, yes.
that'd be appreciated.
Yes.
Is that a question? No, just leaning in, right? Okay. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions from councilors, so appreciate you having having you here with us tonight, as we do on an annual basis, so I appreciate it.
Okay, and thank you for your patience.
Yes, you're welcome. So that's our list of prepared topics for tonight, but I'm wondering if councilors have anything they want to discuss, or any announcements of any kind? We want to get out of here early tonight? All right. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you.